All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about something that I think is very important. It's kind of a public service announcement. So we're going to talk pump and dumps, and we're going to talk about the front side versus the back side and understanding the gloriousness of pumps, but understanding what they are. All right, everyone, League Trader with Stocks and Trade, Tim Bowen, back with you today. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell if you're on YouTube. We'd love to get the information out there. All right, today is the day. Today is the day that one of the most glorious Twitter pumps in quite some time, maybe years, I would say. Probably the best Twitter pump in years, CEI, Camber Energy Inc. You may be familiar with this stock. And today we're going to talk about how to recognize and then also how to trade these so that you can, obviously, the goal is to make money, but you need to recognize when the momentum is shifted and when it's time to move on. Okay, so let's talk about CEI, what it is, what happened here. So this stock started out late August. In the 30 cents, 33-cent stock, you can see was a low. And, we started seeing some activity back on September 1st. You can see the building volume. Notice before that, really no volume, but you can start seeing that building volume and it starts breaking over key levels. 50 cents would have been that first kind of key. And if you remember back on pre-market prep, I was talking about this stock, and numerous times I called this the worst stock in the world. I called it a Twitter pump, but you'll know pretty much every day we talked about this thing on the run up. Now, what you need to recognize is when these are breaking key levels, when the volume is building, etc., these are always potential longs, particularly on that dip and rip and that afternoon VWAP hold, which are those chart patterns I talk about. They're in the ebook. Go below, you can get the ebook. But they're never, ever, ever overnights. And they're never, ever the kind of trade you can walk away from. Now, understand that. Understand what a pump is. Understand what happens when the music stops. I mean, look at this stock. It gapped down all the way to $1. I mean, at the low point from $3 to $1, it's bounced back to $1.40, but it keeps halting. I mean, it's almost impossible to get out on these days. But understand what they are, and this is a American Stock Exchange stock, which we often refer to as the Scamex. You hear me say that on pre-market prep. And the stock has been pumped in the past. And you might say, well, how do I know that? Tim, you've been doing this for 15 years. You've seen CEI. You have the benefit of experience. Well, that's great. Now, one thing I try and do with these videos as much as possible, the number one thing I do in the Steady Trade team is share that experience. I mean, that's why I do these webinars. That's why I work in the mentorship program. Check out the Steady Trade team below. Two webinars a day. Yesterday I did 4 webinars because I had a flight last week. But that being said, if you don't have that experience, you can look and you can recognize what's happening with these by simply the fact that, the stock was basically up every day for 2 weeks until September 16th, barely had any perceptible red days. I mean, actually, the first, what I would call real red day, would be September 22nd. You can see several of these doji candles here, but I don't even consider those as a pullback because you've still got higher lows. So understand that idea. Look at each one of those daily candles. Yeah, we got a couple dojis in there, but they're closing all the way at a higher low until September 20th. Sorry, I said the 22nd. That's the first day where you actually get a lower low versus a higher high. And if you don't understand technical analysis, definitely check out the archive. Check out the stocksandtrade.com/free training. It's an entire 6-video course where I talk about day trading. We talk about a lot of these key levels. But, so there for 2 or 3 weeks, you've got that gradual uptrend in an American Stock Exchange stock with various very, very, very dubious news. That should alert you right off the bat that there's a high likelihood that this is a pump and you should only be in and out when key levels break, whether that be 50 cents or $1 or $1.50 or $2, those whole dollar, half dollar breaks. And it should never, ever, ever be an overnight hold. And once your plan breaks, you need to exit. So you can look at other areas. Again, when it broke 2, look at that day, September 24th. Look at big green day, gaps up the next day, gaps up the next day, gaps up the next day, goes all the way to 485. I mean, there is so much opportunity on that front side if you're agile and you're trading in and out. Now, first red day comes on September 30th. That tells you that there's an extremely high likelihood that this is over, okay? And then, to me, the death knell would have been last Friday. So last Friday, October 1st, okay? And why do I say that's the death knell? Again, you had the first red day followed by a big gap down and a fail to squeeze on a Friday, okay? Any type of pump and dump that can't make a move on a Friday after exploding to the upside, it's over, okay? I mean, and if you're holding through that, and then maybe you held CEI, and if you did, listen, learn from this video, but you got to recognize these signals. First red day, that's one of the biggest things that short sellers look for to hammer. Then an inability to make a move on a Friday in a wild market. Red flag number 2, okay? Closes on the low of the day on a Friday. Red flag number 3, lower lows, as we discussed. I mean, again, even on this first red day, it's still at a higher low. So you got lower lows. I mean, you got 4 or 5 indicators that the momentum has shifted. And listen, maybe you bought at 4, maybe you bought at 485, but you've got signals telling you to get out at 4, 385, 350. You have time to get out of this thing before you get wrecked. 2 days later, when the short seller report comes out, hat tip to Kerrisdale Capital, by the way. I know I pick on short seller reports a lot on pre-market prep, but Kerrisdale, they're doing the good work. I mean, they actually do good due diligence. It's not one of these weirdos. The ones I mock on Twitter are like these guys on Twitter that are like, alien from Mars research. It's like, what? And they got some weird avatar, and you don't even know who they are. I mean, Kerrisdale has a track record. Kerrisdale has a web page you can actually go to. They actually have their faces on their web page. You actually know they're real people. Okay, there's a big difference between that and some weirdo on Twitter. That being said, you should have been out way before the end of the pump, way before the short seller report, because you recognize the shift in momentum. And again, maybe you took that loss. Maybe you were the guy or the gal that bought at 485. But if you're out at 4, or you're out at 350, or you're out at 309 today's close, at least you survived. If you held through today, and tomorrow's probably going to be worse. Heck, actually, drop me a comment below. Where is CEI at the day you're watching this video? Depending on when you're watching this video, it would not shock me one bit to see this thing back to 30 cents. And so that's the biggest point of this video. Trade pumps through key levels, building volume, higher highs, higher lows. Look for all of these, the dip and rips, the VWAP holds, the breaks of previous days' highs. Look for all these patterns, but the biggest thing is don't overstay. You got a nice little profit, just take your profits. If it pulls back, if it hits your stop, stick to your stop. Okay, that's the biggest thing. People say, oh, I'll just go along for the ride, but then they break their stop. If you're breaking your plan, it's going to get worse, and never, ever, ever hold these pump and dumps overnight. I think that is that might be one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they say, oh, it's a pump, it's going to keep going. But if you hold them overnight, there's so many bad things that can happen. Financing, short seller reports, investigations. It's all bad when you hold these things overnight. So that being said, my friends, next pump, there'll be one. There'll always be a pump. There's been pump and dumps from the beginning of time, and they will always exist. And they create some of the best opportunities on the front side if you know to look for green days in a row. You look for the patterns, the building volume, all these things. But then if you can protect your profits, because that's the thing. Let's say you nailed this thing at 1 and you sold at 4 or something ridiculous like that. It doesn't do you any good if you give it all back when it drops back down to 150, okay? Protect your profits, be agile, have a plan and stick to it, whether that be your goal or your stop, and then follow all the other things I talked about. recognizing first red day, lower lows. Don't hold through any of these short seller reports, legitimate short seller reports. And as always, stay safe, my friends. It bums me out. I hate to see people that true believe these stocks. I mean, here's another rule for you. This video's been full of rules. Never believe in a 30-cent stock. Okay? I mean, that maybe should be the title of this video. Never ever believe and invest in a 30-cent stock. Okay? And if you can't do that, this is another topic I talk about on pre-market prep every day, 8:30 Eastern. I'll be like, if you can't disconnect, don't trade stocks like CEI, okay? Stick to the Apples, stick to the Amazons, stick to the real companies, the good companies of the world, because if you find yourself consistently getting married to these ideas, and that happens, okay? Once you got money, once you got skin in the game, I know a lot of people fall for that. So if you can't day trade, and day trading is recognizing price action. Day trading is, as my boy Tim Grattani says, trading the ticker, okay? If you can't disconnect from the ideas and you can't realize that every 30-cent stock, okay? Don't believe the hype. Every 30-cent stock is a pump. Any 30-cent stock that goes from 30 cents to $1 to $2 or $3 is manipulated in some way. Recognize that, and the world is your oyster. If you can't do that, if you can't disconnect your money from your ideas, from your trade ideas, hey, there's plenty of opportunity out there. Buy some Apple, okay? Buy some Google. Buy some Facebook. There's a million, well, not a million, but there's many, many, many. Buy some Tesla. Great growth companies out there. So, all right, everyone, have a great day. And as always, check out the Steady Trade team, and we'll see you next time.